So this is the first time we've had 4 patient panelists, and we're very honored to have all 4 of them because they all 4 have an amazing story. Okay? We are going to start with Amy, and I will let you tell them about yourself and tell your story. I won't say any more than that. Besides, I've known her for quite a while.
Long time
Yeah.
in my former life. So thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Test, 1, 2.
Yep.
So my name is Amy Barant. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this. I was asked to be a part of the patient panel. I was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension in 2013 after about 2 to 3 years of increasing shortness of breath. I would have to stop for a few times walking from my car in the parking garage into my nursing unit. I was an ICU nurse in a former life, and I would pretend that I was checking my phone so that nobody knew that I was actually recovering from my shortness of breath, and I could pretend to myself that there wasn't actually something wrong. It was very important messages. And so when I raised those concerns with my physician, I was always told, oh, you're not exercising enough, you're deconditioned, or you're overweight. And there's so much guilt and shame with being overweight that I just assumed that that was it. And so I just said, okay, that's fine. I'll just work harder and try to lose weight. But I finally saw a new doctor. And when I did, excuse me, I have to put my glasses back on because now I'm old. I hadn't seen a doctor in a few years. And I came to the appointment with a list of things that was wrong, starting with shortness of breath, palpitations, all the way down to sort of just nuisance things like carpal tunnel syndrome. And Dr. Kavanaugh said, okay, let's start with the big stuff. Let's start with the shortness of breath and palpitations. And so in the office visit, hooked up to an EKG and realizing that I had more issues than were going to be able to be fit into a 20-minute appointment, we had planned for another appointment subsequent to that. And as we were kind of wrapping up and talking about the plan, the technician's putting the patches on me and hits print, and I hear Dr. Kavanaugh say, are you sure the leads are on correctly? And so as a nurse, I was like, I burst into tears because I knew that wasn't a good thing. And so following that visit, it was a month of test after test after test, echoes, VQ scans, pulmonary function tests, sleep studies, all the things that you guys have all been through as well, right? Trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And so came to the conclusion that it was probably pulmonary hypertension. And as an ICU nurse, I had never seen a patient with pulmonary hypertension living outside the hospital. Patients with pulmonary hypertension were always on a ventilator in the ICU, waiting for a transplant, waiting to die. And that was extremely scary for me. And so I pulled my boss aside and said, I think I have pulmonary hypertension and I don't know what's going on. And she just said, figure it out. You don't need to come into work for the next little bit. You can just work from home. And so I'm so grateful for that space to go through all of the testing and figure all the stuff out. And then on April 1st, 2013, I had my first and only right heart cath that confirmed that diagnosis of pulmonary hypertension. And unfortunately, it wasn't an April Fool's joke. So after that diagnosis, the changes just kept coming, right? Prior to diagnosis, I took a multivitamin once a day, maybe if I felt like it. And now I was taking 5 pills, and then I was taking 6 pills. And now today I'm taking 11 medications to try to manage my chronic illness. And then you had to talk about the oxygen, right? So when I was first diagnosed, it was like, okay, let's start with 2 liters, and now you're on 4 liters, and now you're on 6 liters. And I had a local oxygen company that was so great, and the same driver every week, and he was awesome and would give me whatever I needed, whatever I asked for. And the company branch was like 10 minutes away. So if I needed something between my appointments, then I could just drive over there. And they were like so friendly and so easygoing and so accommodating. Well, fast forward a year or so, and my oxygen needs now were up to 15 liters a minute. With exercise, now I need to be on liquid oxygen. And local companies don't do that anymore, right? So now I'm on a I have to go to a large national company who doesn't have anybody who I can actually talk to and ask for. It's 15 minutes of phone trees. You guys all know that drill, right? And so it was just really, really scary. And then every time with each change, whether it was adding medication or increasing oxygen needs, I was always afraid that the insurance company was just going to say, no, we're not going to do that. And even when they said yes, it was like delays and hoops to jump through, and then like infinite phone hold times where you're just like on terminal hold. And when you're not feeling well, navigating those changes is really, really challenging. So 3 months after my diagnosis, I was then able to go to pulmonary rehab at University of Colorado Hospital. And I don't know if you guys talked about that this morning, but pulmonary rehab is basically going to the gym. It's a monitored exercise program with regular gym equipment, ellipticals and treadmills, and then like all the oxygen you could ever want. And then somebody to make sure that you're doing okay while you're doing it. I've always joked that it's the best place that I never wanted to be. And so I would go there and I would walk on the treadmill, I would do the elliptical, I would lift weights. And, organized support groups never felt right to me. It just wasn't really my jam. But like this group served that purpose for me. It was some place where I could go and ask questions. It was some place where I could go and realize that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't the only person struggling with lung disease. And it was also a place where I could go and get inspired by other people doing hard things. And so then I also really had to check myself whenever I felt like throwing a pity party. I could look around at these amazing people doing hard things and think, you know what? I can do that. I can do this. And so I always think about, there was a guy named Robbie who was there, and exercise has not always been my favorite thing to do. Like I think some people love cleaning their house and that brings them life. That's not me. Some people really like exercising. It feeds them. That's not me either. But I watched Robbie come from across town on the west side and ride like 2 buses to get there with his oxygen in his 70s. And he was there every single day. And I just thought, who am I? Like, get up and go. Like, you have no excuse. And so that was really helpful to be a part of that group. In April of 2019, something really interesting happened to me where I was on the elliptical, and by the grace of God, I suddenly had this realization of how lucky I was to be there. I had, for the last 3 or 6 years, focused on what I couldn't do anymore and what was really challenging. And I had this moment where I was so lucky that I could still do the elliptical. I could look around and there were people that couldn't do that, but I was able to still do that. And so really having that moment of gratitude was super impactful. And then I had the other realization that this might be the best I ever feel for the rest of my life. And when you are living with a progressive and curable disease, I had never honored what I could still do. And so having that moment of realization was really, really helpful for me. Again, I had only focused on what I couldn't do anymore. And like, make no mistake, what we're struggling with is real. Like, the hard things that we deal with on a daily basis, that's real. The losses that you faced are real, and the unmet expectations are very real. So for me, that meant not being able to jump on a plane at the last minute and take my kid to see Hamilton in Chicago. Like, that's a disappointment, right? And having to worry about medication and oxygen access, those are all real. But the fact that I could do 30 minutes on an elliptical when other people can't, that was also real. And the fact that I can still go camping with my family, that was super real too. And the fact that I can still cook dinner for my family when I want to is real. Well, that's real. And so there was just this small but gigantic shift in my mentality. I don't have to exercise, I get to exercise. And that's made all the difference for me. From a practical standpoint, that means my 6-minute walk distance has gone up 70%. It means that I'm here 10 years after diagnosis when the median survival at diagnosis was 3 to 7 years. And I've got no plans of going anywhere. And so, thanks. But I also want to talk about the impact on mental health because that's really as important as our physical health. I've always been a perfectionist, and let's face this diagnosis has made me very imperfect. I was used to being an ICU nurse in control of high stress situations, and I could hardly control anything anymore. It's taken me 10 years to understand and honestly to forgive myself for my diagnosis and what it's done to the trajectory of my family. I still struggle a little bit, but I'm learning self-compassion. And so if you're blaming yourself for your diagnosis, please set that down. Forgive yourself for that. We're all imperfect. Some of our imperfections are just a little more visible. And I just be gentle with yourself. Love yourself the way you love your family and friends. Love yourself the way God loves you. And if you can't, find a good therapist and figure out why. You deserve it. Allow yourself to grieve because what you're doing is a hard thing, and it's okay to name that. Our culture doesn't always love and value sick people, but you're worthy of love and a life fully lived. The organizers have asked also just to kind of share some practical points. And so just real quickly, rest when you need to. Find a person who can be helpful to you. Everybody needs an in case of emergency person. Find other people who are going through similar situations. Coming to conferences like these, I think we can often get separated and lonely, and that is where some really unhealthy thinking occurs. And so if you can find other people that are going through similar situations, cling to them. And then my biggest thing is like, don't settle. Don't settle for what you're given. If you feel limited by the amount of oxygen that your company says you can have, fight back against that. Ask for what you need. Don't settle. And then don't give up. I'm in awe of what you guys do to get out of bed every day. The fact that you've come here today is amazing. And I just want to honor that and just say, don't give up. Thank you so much.
Amazing story. So next, we have Linda. And I'm not going to say anything about Linda. Linda will speak for herself, and she has an amazing story also.
Okay, I'm going to try. Hello, my name is Linda Regis, and I came up from Colorado Springs. I was diagnosed in 2008. I got really sick, and I ended up in the hospital, put on oxygen. I was a smoker. I quit then, so that was my quit date. And I went home on oxygen. It kind of scared me. I didn't know that I would be on it and that this was a permanent thing that I had, which was COPD. When I learned that I had that, I started to feel left out, withdrew. But I always tried to stay positive. That's the one thing I did do. And so there was things that I knew were challenging. And just getting up sometimes and trying to get my mind set for a shower, to get something to eat, to walk down the hallway. The doctor said exercise, and I kind of went, okay. But then as I progressed in the disease, things changed. And I got put into pulmonary rehab by my doctor. That was the best thing I can tell you that happened to me, because I had to go. It was something that I knew I needed to show up, because if I didn't, then I would probably be getting a phone call. And they're like, you're gonna pay for this, because you're set for that. So it gets you going. And I, like the person that spoke before me, did the same thing. I was with people that understood what I was going through. There was nurses and the people that did the exercises. I think they were technicians, I'm not sure. Doctors, no. But they were up there giving us the things to do to get our strength, keep our strength, which is important because it gets you to feeling better and you're with people. And that's a big thing because I started getting excluded from my own family things because they were like, well, Mom, I don't know if you can go. You know, it's a bit of a walk. And so then I felt excluded, and that works on you. I think the worst part of it all at pulmonary rehab, honestly, was the sits and stands. That was the worst, where you had to sit and stand constant for, I think it was a minute. And then they ask you, how many did you do? And they're right there. They know you did more than 3. But maybe, you know, if you kind of like, and they say, no, you need to sit all the way on that chair. So, but they were amazing, and they changed my life at the time because I felt alone. To me, there's a difference between alone and lonely. And the disease makes you feel secluded, alone, but you're with the people you love, and they're trying to do their best. So my daughter was a good example. I had to go get a new license because mine expired. And so in Colorado Springs, the license where you go get it is on the 2nd floor, which was fine because there was an elevator for a break. But when I sat down, after walking further and sitting in the chair, I looked at her and I said, oh, I'm so thirsty. And there's a water fountain, and she goes, Mom, the water fountain's just right over there. And to me, I was like, it looked like the Shining hallway. It looked like that far. Where my one son, who was a severe asthmatic, he would say, when he'd take me to the store, I'm going to drop you off first, and then I'll go park. And so he related because he had asthma all his life. So it's hard, you know, for them to completely understand you, but being in a group of people that know what you're going through, and you can talk to them, get your feelings out, that's important. It really is. And I found the greatest group, and I met Wanda on that group on Facebook. It is called, what is it called? Huh? Yeah, COPD Friends for Life. And so if any of you can remember that, I would join it because you will be amazed that even on a Facebook page, you are talking to people that you can talk about anything, about the disease, about how you feel, and they're going to understand it. So that all happened, but then I thought as I got worse, that was it for me. But I got sent up here to UC Health, got diagnosed for a double lung transplant. And I got that in 2016. Thanks. I'm going on 7 years. And I've had an amazing story, more than I could tell in the few 10 minutes before she throws up the sign. But I got to meet my donor family, and I got to meet Peyton Manning. I got to enjoy Denver Bronco Field with a lot of the football players. Just exciting things. So don't ever give up hope on your dreams, or because I did. I'm not lying. I'm old, but I had a crush on Peyton. And so I got to meet him, and then COVID. You know, we're already stuck. But when you get something stamped on you like COVID, and you have to stay home, and your whole outlook, you just kind of go home. What's next? Well, unfortunately, I got to be a grandma to my grandson who was born, but I caught COVID from him. So I was put in the hospital. I was induced into a coma. I was told I wasn't going to make it. So my kids were frantic because they couldn't plan a funeral. They woke me out of the coma and told me, "You're not going to make it. That we've done everything we could." But I am a woman of faith, and God had other plans. And so I was in there for a month. They didn't think I'd come off of the ventilator. I did. And they were surprised because I kept walking and I got stronger. And even though I went out of that hospital on kidney dialysis that they didn't think I would come off of, I did. And so here it is, and here I am to share my story. So don't give up hope, and, lean on the people that you can, and find someone that's going through what you're going through, because your family, they love you very much. But it's the people that are going through it that are the warriors that are going to pull you through the deepest part of what you're going through. So that's my story. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's been my experience with pulmonary rehab that social interaction is key because, and Lori, tell me if you see it different, what winds up happening if you don't show up to rehab, it's your fellow patients that call you to check on you and see where you are. And most of the rehab people will say, have you talked to him? Do you know what's going on? And then we get the full story. So awesome. Thank you. Wonderful story. And next we have Wanda up, who also has a fabulous story to tell us. So please welcome Wanda.
Hi. Hi, everyone, and bear with me. I'm not very good at this. Actually, this is the first time I've been speaking in front of a group. But anyway, I'm a lung volume reduction recipient. I got my surgery on September 11th, 2014. So I just celebrated 9 years. And before I had the surgery, I was at a 23% lung capacity. And it was pretty hard. I was practically bedridden by the time I had my surgery done. So thank God for that. Anyway, I smoked for 48 years, cigarettes, of course, and I was.
Colorado, so maybe it wasn't right.
Anyway, I worked for a grocery store chain in California, Stater Brothers Markets. I worked for them for 20 years. And I got diagnosed in March of 2010 with emphysema. Years before that, I was, every couple of years I would get bronchitis. But doctors never, back then, they weren't talking about, COPD and emphysema, and at least to me, at least the doctors that I saw weren't speaking about that. So anyway, so back in July, when I got diagnosed in March from my primary physician, I got sent to a pulmonologist, and he right away, because I was already at 34% lung capacity at that time. So I was already, when I found out I had emphysema, I was already very severe. So the pulmonologist that I had sent me to UCLA to talk about lung transplant. And so I went, and that we talked about it, and I would be eligible for a single lung, and but at 34%, I was going to have to wait a long time. So anyway, I ended up having to stop working and start my retirement early. I was 58 years old when I was diagnosed. And so from March to July, I just kept getting sick. And I was in and out of coolers because I was a bakery manager. So, I was in freezers and in coolers, and just, a lot of work in a grocery store. So finally in July, I had to stop working. And I was still a smoker then. And I found support groups, like Linda was saying. We met at COPD, Friends for Friends. And that was back in 2010. And I was in California when I met her. So anyway, and come January 28th in 2010, I went to the grocery store to grab something. But when I came out, I had walked behind a Dreyer's ice cream truck. And so the diesel smell, it just, when I got to my car, I couldn't breathe. And thank God I only lived a couple minutes away. I had my rescue inhaler, was using it. And by the time, I made it home, and I was going to go upstairs to my room, and I couldn't climb the stairs. And I was halfway up the stairs, and my kids looked at me and said, are you okay? Should we call an ambulance? And I'm going, yes. So I was admitted into the hospital for 9 days. 5 of those days I was in ICU. I couldn't even walk. It was just, wow. It was life-changing, that experience. So after 9 days, I came home with oxygen on exertion. And guess what? I was still smoking. I was still smoking. I had cut way down, but I was still smoking. So in March of, now I'm in 2012. So in March, I could see that I was declining, and it hurt to smoke. It really hurt. So at that time, I finally gave it up. Yay for me. But I also knew it was time to make some decisions in my life to go forward. So I came up with a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. Plan A being I was offered to get into the study for the valves. And from my UCLA pulmonologist, he was running the clinical trial. And we went through this for 10 months. And the very last test that they do is on fissures we have in our lungs, and it didn't line up. So after 10 months of going through this, I was now down to 27% lung capacity. And so that didn't work. Plan A didn't work. Plan B said, okay, go back to the transplant team, and so I did. And they said, well, looks like you could qualify for a lung volume reduction, which only 15% of people with COPD can actually live up to the criteria to have it done. So, that was in my favor too. So anyway, so after that, we decided, okay, we're going to go ahead with the lung volume reduction. And so that was then in June of 2013, in 2013 now, anyway, I went back, and I'm messing up. Anyway, it showed I was a good candidate for the lung volume reduction. And I met with the cardiothoracic surgeon. And then before I could have this done, they found, because I get out of breath very, very easily, and hypoxia. It's just, I don't need oxygen all the time. I just need it on exertion. But it it gets pretty bad. So, and my exercise tolerance is not good. So anyway, they found that I had a hole in my heart. So I had to have a PFO put in because they thought maybe that would help with me breathing better, but it didn't. So anyway, I had that done in June. And then I got the date for my surgery, which was September 11th, 2014. So that day has, double meaning for me. And so anyway, so now, the surgery was like about, I don't know, it was about a 5-hour surgery. I was hard to intubate. It was hard for me coming out of anesthesia, but you know what? Everything worked out in the end, and praise God for that. So now, it's after the surgery. I mean, it changed my life completely. I can't even tell you. 2 days after I had the surgery, it was the biggest difference in the world for me. I mean, it was huge. And so in 2015, I was so much better that I went out because I was living with my daughter and her husband, or they were living with me. But anyway, I ended up getting my own place. Finally, I was independent. And so my daughter and her family moved to Colorado. And I was still in California. And then in 2016, my daughter, it was hard for her because my eldest granddaughter is a quadriplegic. So I came to help, my daughter and, to spend time with my granddaughters. They were still young. And then I moved here to Colorado in October of 2017. So after I got here, I immediately found, a pulmonologist, and he was like, he's like, wow, he goes, I normally don't get patients that come to Colorado. They're usually leaving Colorado. And, and I actually got up to 61% in my PFTs with my highest here in Colorado. When I left California, I was at 56%. So then, I got to meet Linda in person when I came here. And so we've been buddying around ever since. And we became facilitators for the American Lung Association. And because Colorado Springs needed a Better Breathers Club, thanks to Rob. He got Linda and I involved. And so we started it, and we started having in person. And then COVID came. So I ended up with COVID myself, and at the end of December of 2020. And thankfully, my medical group called and said, hey, we have a clinical trial going on. Do you want to get the same vaccine that Trump had? And I went, yeah, of course I will, And so after that, then we decided to do, now we do the Better Breathers Club, but it's virtual and on Zoom. So, and now, actually, I'm fixing on going back to California. I'm back on the decline a little bit, so I'm at 53% right now, my last PFT. And in December, I'm moving back to California. And that's about it. So thank you for listening. And
Thank you very much, Wanda. You did a good job. So, and now we have Joni. Last but not least, she's told her story many times. And so please, Joni, tell us
Thank you.
about
Let me
yourself.
raise this microphone up a bit. hello, everyone. Nice to see you, and thanks for hanging in with all of us this afternoon. I know listening to people's stories can, sometimes you want to tell your own, but I am so honored to be able to tell my story, and thank you for the invitation to do so. So if you're wondering why I'm wearing a crown and a sash, I am the Miss Colorado Senior America 2023. And thank you very much. And right now I'm sort of focused on what's happening in less than 10 days. And I go to Atlantic City, New Jersey, where I will be competing with 49 other women for the title of Miss Senior America. So I'll be representing Colorado and hoping to bring the crown home for us. Thank you. So my story, you look at me today and someone said, I never would have guessed that you have a story like you have to tell. But here's my story. So in June of 18, I was working for a big credit card processing company. And I was a vice president in the financial institution division. Super happy, traveling all over the country, doing great, my best financial year ever. And it was my 5th year in a row to have a breast MRI. Breast cancer runs super high in my family, so it was something that we did every year, and I was on the 5th one. What I expected to hear was, everything's fine, no cancer, you're good. What I got was not the letter in the mail. I got a phone call from my gynecologist, and she said, well, your breast tissue looks great, but there's something very suspicious in your lung, and I need you to go look at that. What she didn't tell me is that her husband is an oncologist who specializes in lung cancer. So she broke every HIPAA law there was, brought her laptop home, showed him the MRI, and he knew right away what it was. It was cancer in my lung. But she didn't tell me that, and thank goodness. So I went through the motions. I made an appointment with my pulmonologist, and he scheduled a lot of tests. And so, of course, I asked him, like all of you, would have asked, do I have cancer? And he looked at me and said, Johnny, we can't tell anything without a lot of tests. We have to put you through some tests. But his medical assistant held my hand as I'm walking, and she said, oh my gosh, Joni, I'm going to be with you the entire step of the way. I will be with you every moment. And don't worry, you just stay strong. Okay, without telling me I had cancer, she pretty much told me I had cancer. But I think it, bless her heart, Ashley, it prepared me for what was next. And I was not a smoker. And I questioned, how do I have lung cancer? It just didn't make sense to me. So after seeing the pulmonologist, I had an MRI. I did a CAT scan. He said, well, I can't really tell you anything other than it doesn't look good, but now I need for you to go see an oncologist at Rocky Mountain Cancer Center. And I thought, are you kidding me? Cancer Center? I mean, it was just shocking to me because I had no symptoms whatsoever. And I thought it just didn't make sense. But I went to go see Dr. Jati at Rocky Mountain Cancer Center, and he's the best. He's an MD and a PhD, really on top of research, and I felt really blessed to have him as my guy. And he ran a PET scan, and then he said, you might want to bring your husband, and if you have any other family members, bring them to this next appointment. So I knew it was pretty serious, and so I did. And he said, you have stage 4 lung and neck cancer. And I didn't even know I had a tumor in my neck, but apparently the tumor was in my neck the size of a walnut on my C4 on the right side. I had a 2-inch by 3-inch tumor on my right side in the middle lobe. And if you're going to get cancer, you want it there. And then I had a pencil eraser tumor in the upper right lobe. And, what do you say to that other than, are you kidding me? Cancer, I don't have time for cancer. I have time to meet with my clients and book meetings and travel business to New York. I was on my game, but life had another thing planned for me. So anyway, I had, the next step was, okay, what type of cancer is it? So he scheduled me to have a biopsy, a needle biopsy in my lung. And not only did I have the pleasure of one, I had the pleasure of two of those. And I don't know, raise of hand, any of you had a needle biopsy of your lung? Oh, it's no fun. I know you have definitely had that. Yeah, no fun. And you too, Bella. Yeah, so they said, well, we didn't get enough tissue and your tumor was under your spleen. So we had to be careful. So I did it again. And then they couldn't type it. I was waiting and waiting. They couldn't type it here in Colorado. So they sent it to MD Anderson. And so MD Anderson was able to look at it and determine that it was melanoma. So not only did I have lung cancer, but in the 1% group, which I'm always in that 1% group, I had melanoma as the primary place in my lung. And my statistic here is that melanoma is a primary cancer of the lung, extremely rare at 0.1%. So less than 1%. And of course, that was me, to have that type of cancer. And so, I look back and I think I was in denial because rather than falling apart and freaking out as I probably should have, I had a stack of file folders on my desk. I'm a little bit old school, but I like visual things when I was working. And so I had file folders that would say, trip to New York, or I had contract renewal for this bank. And so I made a file folder. I typed it out and it said cancer. And I put it on my desk. And that's how I looked at it. It was a project and I just needed to take care of it. And I think actually that saved me. And looking back, I'm pretty surprised that I did that because I'm a very emotional person. But back then, I'm proud. I was pretty logical to do that. And so, going through that. So I went through. So Dr. Jati said, okay, here's the plan. Here's our game plan. We're going to do a wedge dissection of your lung. And so my diagnosis was in June of 2018. Are we doing the slideshow of my pictures? Yeah, that was me feeling super great back then. June of 2018 is when it started. My wedge dissection was in October of 18, so it took a few months to get through that needle biopsy. And I bounced back pretty well. The worst part was pulling that tube out of my lung. That was the worst. I felt like a garden hose pulling it out, but it came out. And then I had radiation, and I felt like a rock star in November because the doctor said, well, the type of tumor you have, even though it's large, we can do 3 super duper doses of radiation. So I had that lovely mask made. If you've had, anyone had that, that's the worst thing in the world. It's a contraption that is form-fitted to your head, and you can't even move your chin to breathe. It was pretty rough, but 3 doses of radiation and I was done. So I got to ring the bell, and I felt a little guilty because there were people that, it's months of this terrible stuff. And then it was time to talk about what was next. And I thought, I am killing this. Not only am I getting my contracts renewed across the country, getting my lung removed, I'm getting radiation. I'm a rock star. I was good. And then he said, okay, now we're going to do immunotherapy. And I thought, okay, well, that's great. It's not chemotherapy, it's immunotherapy. So I started that. There's some of my little messages. I started immunotherapy, and I had asked Dr. Jati, okay, what is the most aggressive plan that you can put together? Because I just want to get through this. And he thought I was nuts, and he kind of advised me against it. But I said, I don't have time for this. I have things I need to do. Thought work was much more important than my own life. And how many other workaholics are out there? Yeah, crazy how we put work before our health. But I did then. I don't now. Well, it helps to be retired and wear a crown. I'll tell you that. So you don't have the projects that I used to have. But so immunotherapy started, and he did a dual drug treatment. The plan was 2 drugs, 4 times, and it was ipilimumab. I don't know if is there an MDs in the house? So it's ipilimumab and then nivolumab. 2 doses of that. The plan was 4 times and then 10 times of the other drug. So I thought, okay, great, 9 months and I'll be done with this. So I had the first treatment, piece of cake. Never had any issues, and I was still working. Things were good. And again, I thought, I am such a rock star. I am handling cancer like it's fantastic. And then I had the other one, which was in January of 2019. And I had been working on a big contract renewal of a commercial bank in Phoenix, Arizona, and they were tough. Previous vice presidents had almost killed the deal. They didn't want to work with these people. They thought they were, just unrealistic. And then I came in and I thought, okay, I'm going to save this deal. And I just started. Anyway, I went to Phoenix after having the second treatment, and I was literally in a boardroom, a very fancy boardroom full of executives, and it finally hit me. I had that queasy feeling down there that none of us ever want to have, and it was 5 minutes to 9 before this huge meeting was about to start, and I excused myself and went to the restroom, and the restroom was just as beautiful as that boardroom, white marble. It was just gorgeous. And I spent the next 4 hours in that restroom, was not able to leave. It was terrible. And I found myself, imagine this, literally stripping off my clothes and laying on that marble floor because, up and down from the commode, up and down, but I was sweating profusely. I'm sure I had a fever. That immunotherapy hit me, and it hit me hard. So 4 hours, they kept knocking on the door, asked me if I was okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. But please don't call 911 because I'm going to, I'll be fine. And so I made that, and I prayed a lot, and I was able to finally emerge around noon. The meeting was over. I think some of the people understood. My coworker that was there was able to salvage some of the meeting. I got on a plane. I came home. And for the next 18 months, I had the most severe case of diarrhea anyone had ever seen. And I dropped down to 129 pounds. And I had lost all my hair. I don't know if those slides were shown ahead of time. And it was pretty bad. And I did a lot of praying, and we could not give me any more of the immunotherapy. So Dr. Jody was pretty worried and told me that I wasn't out of the woods and I couldn't ring the bell. I really wanted to ring that cancer bell that I was done, but it was nowhere to be seen. And he couldn't give me any more of that immunotherapy because my body didn't want any part of it. And so we prayed a lot, and I had a PET scan every quarter. At one point, for the diarrhea, I was on 16 medications, and the best gastroenterologist in Denver and my oncologist could not figure out why. And again, it's that 1% that I fall into. If anybody was going to get sicker than a dog, it was me. So they contacted the manufacturers of this drug, and they had never heard about it. The two drugs together have a black box warning on them anyway. And I think now they re-looked at what that said based upon my case. But I made it. And then I just, those 16 meds, without the advice of my doctors, I didn't take any medication at all. I cold turkeyed it and thought, if I'm this sick, I'm probably not going to make it. I don't want to continue with this. And so I put my own regimen together, which was CBD oil and aloe vera juice, and a lot of fruits and vegetables, and a lot of praying, and I started to get better. I just started to get better, and my hair was beginning to come back. I had peach fuzz, and I was super proud of that. And about 3 months into that time period, my girlfriends invited me to go out, and we were listening to this band. And one of the guests that were there was the Miss Senior Colorado pageant administrator. Her name is Renee Green. And she asked me how old I was. So I don't know if, I would never come up to somebody and say, how old are you? Instead of, hi, what's your name? But I said, well, I'm 60. Oh, good, she said, because you have to be 60 to be in our pageant. And I thought, pageant? I'm not a pageant gal. I'm a corporate gal. What are you talking about? But I thought, it honestly took me 3 months to say, why not? Once you have stage 4 lung and neck cancer, and you feel like you've beat it, I wasn't afraid of anything. I thought I was a superhero. So, okay, I'll be in your pageant. And And in the meantime, I was actually working on some other stuff because I still had that breast MRI. I still had that fear of cancer. So while the other contestants were working on, I don't know, getting their hair perfect and their nails, I was working with a plastic surgeon and a breast surgeon. So I had planned to electively have a double radical mastectomy 3 days after that first pageant. So I didn't tell anybody that though. And I did the pageant and I came in first runner up, which was very exciting. And I thought, okay, well, that was awesome. That was a bucket list. And I wasn't upset. You know, people thought I would be angry, and I wasn't angry. I was so happy of my accomplishments. And then I had the double mastectomy, which was pretty rough. And it took about 8 months before that was finalized. So it was 8 months of expanders, which are like razor blades duct taped onto your ribs. It was pretty hairy. But I survived that. And just a month ago, I had my 4th surgery. So it's not over yet. But a year after that, then they asked me, do you want to do it again? Because we're having the next pageant and, you know, you came really close. And I thought, no, I'm done. And my husband was like, oh, thank God she's not doing this again. Because it's very time consuming. And he told me the other day that I've transformed myself into, well, I don't even know what he called me, but he said, just go look at your closet. I don't even know who you are anymore. And, you know, this is not what I used to wear, going to meetings in Arizona to do contract renewals on banks, but it is a lot more fun. So I did that pageant, which was in 2022 of October. And, you know, doing it the second time, I wasn't afraid of anything. And I knew already what to expect. I wasn't nervous. I changed my song because the first year I sang Let's Get Loud by Jennifer Lopez, and I played the conga drums. So I was wild compared to the conservative group, which is maybe why I didn't win. But so I thought, you know, I better find a song that's a little more mature. So I sang Love by Natalie Cole. And the dress I wore, my mother actually wore to my wedding 37 years ago, almost 38. And I think it brought me magic. And so I did the pageant with no fear, and I won. And it was one of those like Norma Ray moments, you know, they like me, they really like me. It was pretty amazing. And so they placed the crown on my head, and it has been the busiest year of my life. But the most exciting thing, and I haven't even gotten to this, and I know I have a minute left. Maybe Alan will give me a couple more minutes. But being a non-smoker, I thought, why did I get why did I get lung cancer? And I've met the most amazing people that have taught me everything I need to know about radon and radon exposure. So they tested my home for free. And by the way, make sure you sign up for that free testing from Protect Environmental. But my home was tested and my previous home was tested, and the picoliters were off the chart. So I am convinced without a shadow of a doubt that radon exposure brought on my cancer. And I was so fortunate to be part of, and Nick was there as well, part of the group that went to the Senate at our state capitol, and we helped introduce the bill with Senator Faith Winters just back in April, and it was SD 26-103, and it's the Radon Awareness Bill. So we were there in the Senate. We talked to a lot of the senators, made them aware of what it was, and I was asked to speak in the House. So I gave my testimony at the House. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But it's true. And no one ever told me about radon. When I bought those brand new homes from Lennar, they never said, oh, by the way, maybe there's radon. Maybe you should have, you know, this house tested and the mitigation could save your life. Nobody said that. So instead, all these years later, 5 years now, I could have been, maybe I didn't have to go through this. I don't know. But radon is odorless. It is a silent killer. It's the number 2 reason, and I'm not a statistical person. They all could speak better for me. But it's right behind smoking is radon. And so So I believe, and I'm gonna sum it up it this way. I'm super blessed. There's not a day goes by that I don't feel like God gave me a miracle, because I'm a woman of faith as well. And he said, you have a purpose. Now go forth and tell people about Radon, because it's a really important. So there's a table in there from Protect Environmental. And again, just sign up and they will test your home. It's $185 value and it's absolutely free. So take advantage of that. I wish you all continued health and love, and God bless each and every one of you. And thank you so much for letting me speak over time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joni, and the entire panel. Didn't they do a wonderful job? It's not easy to get up and tell your story. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
No, I just want to say I was very that was beautiful, your story. I just want to say thank you so much. Very powerful.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else? Putting you on the spot.
Great people on the panel.
Good. Said we have some great people on the panel. Thank you. Any other questions of these? Oh, here we go.
I want to say thank you guys. I know it is not easy to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to share your story. Thank you. I do want to ask Linda a question. You had mentioned that you were able to meet Manning. Is there a story behind that? If you feel comfortable sharing. If you don't, that's fine also. Is there a story behind you meeting Manning? Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm kind of deaf. Okay, how it came about that I met Peyton Manning was, okay, so I had a crush on him. I knew he was married, but But when I went in for my transplant, I knew he was like a public relations person for UC Health. And so that stuck in my head. And so I thought, I'll get this transplant, and then maybe when I wake up, I'll go meet him. I'll walk the halls. And so what I did was, okay, so of course I came out of the transplant. It wasn't all roses, like, whew, I can get up and go. And I had the vent, and there was some healing to do. But he was always in my head. So when they pulled the vent out, my voice was hoarse, but I said, "Where's Peyton?" And the nurse kind of looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "Where's Peyton?" And she said, well, usually he's not around here. And I said, "Well, he's on TV. And he comes, he talks about UC Health." And she said, "Oh, well, maybe he comes around sometimes." And I think that was just this lady's baddie. And so somehow, I don't know how it got out, but I had my transplant in 2016, and it wasn't until 2018 that I got call from the PR from UC Health at Anschutz Medical Center. And she said, "Can we do a story, about you?" I said, "Yeah." And so I told him about my story. Nothing came of it. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call, and it was from the PR. And he said, "We're thinking that we want to do a story about you at the Denver Bronco Training Center. And you bring your family and all your gear, and, we'll do it there, because they said you could use the facility. We could use this facility." I said, "Oh, cool." So I told my family, and then when I told him how many people were coming, he was like, "Oh, okay." And so I gathered all of my Peyton stuff and got up there, and to come to find out, they had the news there. It was Channel 4 here, I think, in Denver, and it was the Denver Bronco rep. representative. So they're asking me questions about my transplant and stuff, and so I'm telling them. And I thought, oh, I did a good job. So then afterwards, they said, you girls can go out into the field, and they were throwing me footballs and stuff. And my son got a little carried away because he's a big Bronco fan. I think he thought I was one of his wide receivers or something. And so it actually hit my hand, and I was like, oh, that hurts. And so they said, okay, let's get a picture. And so we all got, in the group. And I thought that the guy that was talking, that came out of nowhere, was the PR guy from UC Health. And he was standing next to me. And he said, my son said, I don't even have to look who that is. I already know the voice. And that didn't get my attention. And so then I I heard Peyton say something like, don't worry about it, don't worry about anything, nothing important here, just keep looking at the camera. Didn't think nothing of it. And then I just kind of turned my head, and I don't know, I think it's on camera, but I just kind of went, and I went, Omaha. And so he and the UC Health got me a ticket for the first game I ever went to against Oakland, the opener. And then I was on the field, and that was so cool. But there's more that I did. I met my donor family. I found out they invite me up here. There's a lot more to my story. I have been incredibly blessed, and that's why I said, don't ever give up hope. And on the down days, try to find something to occupy what the disease is trying to do with you and keep you down. Because what I found was if I didn't have a garden, I love gardening, and I couldn't do it anymore. So what I did was I got 3 plants, and I nurtured those plants with my Shih Tzu. And she knew that at a certain time, she got, they're smart. And so she knew that, let's go out there and do that. And I would, this is going to sound completely out there, but I would go and stand outside and listen to traffic just to feel part of society. Because being stuck inside because it's hard to breathe. But if you go out and you can hear the cars and hear the birds and stuff, then you're still part of this earth, and that you're still important, you're still loved, and you just need to fight, because you guys are all warriors. I gotta say, I know that journey. It is so hard to get up in the morning, to get out and try to convince yourself this is gonna be a good day. It's hard, but you do it. So I know both sides, but my hats are off to you. And I'm so glad you guys all showed up. But that's the story.
I think we have time for one more question. Anybody have a burning question you want?
My question is very simple. I'm like you have lung transplant, both lung. To me, it's amazing. But a rejection, did you have to take a lot of pills to avoid rejection?
Medication?
Yeah.
I do take the medication. I take like 8 pills in the morning and about the same at bedtime. But that is totally just, to do just to get the 7 years. To tell you guys, I got a grandson that was born. I got 2 great-granddaughters born. Both my other grandsons graduated. I wouldn't have saw that. My older granddaughter got her wedding. I got to be there. There's so many of the milestones I wouldn't have got. So the gift of life is precious. And for me to be blessed with that, I cherish that every day. And hopefully I do him proud. But his name was Shakespeare. And if you go on to Google, you will see a few little things that I did for the Denver Broncos and for UC Health. And I roll my eyes at the Denver Broncos because they had me do a skit. And after watching it, I couldn't believe I did it. But if you Google my name, you'll see it, and life has been a blessing. I've got a lot of things going on health-wise, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So, thanks, guys.